we got a 2-round mock. And I will say, a little promotion here. Some of the guys that we're talking about on our Patreon shows that we're about to record, we really were blown away by what they did at the combine. So patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. You get a week for free. Come in, hang out, join our community. We would love to have you. But, we figured it's time. We've done a couple 1-round mocks, but we're going to do a 2-round rookie mock draft. So this is super flex, and it's a 1-point tight end premium. All right. So I went ahead, Nate, and I'm such a nice guy. I gave you the first pick, the 101. Who do you got?
Yeah, it's a pretty easy pick at the 101. I have Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, running back. This guy ran for just about 2,600 yards this year, which is absolutely insane.
So good.
He didn't test at the combine, but I'm not too worried about that. His production speaks for itself. You're excited to have him as the 101. He looks like he's going to come in, be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, be one of those guys that's going to be a cornerstone player for the running back position. There's a lot of running backs in this group, and I think that there is an option to not pick up Ashton Jeanty at the 101. I don't think this is as set in stone as it has been in the past for some of the past couple of drafts because of the RB depth.
Yeah.
As much as I love Jeanty, there's so much good talent in this class that you can't really put him head and shoulders, above every single other player in this draft. So I think there is some argument if you want to go somewhere else at the 101. But currently, I don't have anyone else that I think is worthy of the 101. So Jeanty it is.
My only thought process there, and I don't fault your thought there at all, but if you want to go somewhere else, I trade back.
Yeah.
I trade out
the move rather
trade
than
out.
a different player.
Like if you want Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or whoever your quarterback of choice is, trade out of the 101, get your guy at 103, 104, 105, depends on how your league looks. Obviously, know your league mates. That's a strategy as well. And then get some extra capital on top of it, or even another player, somebody that's going to help your team. If you have the 101, you earned it most likely, or you traded for it. And then in that case, you'll just take Ashton Jeanty if you traded for it, I'm assuming. Let's go to the 102. That's me. I went ahead and I took Ted McMillan, another guy that did not participate in any combine activities, didn't really need to. I mean, his film says it all. He's a slimmer Mike Evans, pretty much, with the size, the frame, his ability to get open. It's just really another guy. We've been talking about this a lot. Nate and I did some scouting, and a lot of these guys were kind of victim to their quarterback play. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys, their quarterbacks are in this class. We'll be talking about them in a little bit. Ted McMillan, we've talked about him ad nauseum. Don't need to add too much there, but he's my 102. Nate, what are you looking at for the 103?
Yeah, for the 103, I decided it's time to go grab a quarterback. This is a super flex mock draft. We're also doing a point tight end premium. Give me a quarterback. I have Shedeur Sanders in our last video as my quarterback one, but I'm actually going to go Cam Ward here. I'm going Cam Ward because I think Cam Ward's going to be picked in the NFL draft before Shedeur Sanders. My scouting reports of the two of them are essentially 1A and 1B. I don't have a strong lean either way. I think both of them are pretty talented. Both have their question marks as well.
Of course.
I think Cam Ward offers a bit more on the playmaking side and a bit more upside in the fantasy community. For scoring fantasy points, I think Cam Ward has a bit more of an advantage over Shedeur Sanders. So when I'm doing this mock draft, I'm going to go ahead and pick Cam Ward here at the 103. Having a quarterback in Superflex is so valuable. I think this is the year if you need a quarterback to go trade for one rather than draft one. But in this instance, I have the 103. I got to make a pick. It's Cam Ward.
Yeah, that would be a great time to trade for J.J. McCarthy. Looks like he's going to be the starter over there in Minnesota. I talked about that before, so go grab him.
I think some other good trade targets, if you're looking for a quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, I think right now both of them are good values for what they're going to be able to give you.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Just buy the guys that people are down on, but that are going to be starting quarterbacks as well. So Nate's taking my quarterback one. Got to snipe me here. So I'm going to go with my quarterback two currently. I'm going with Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. Look, Shedeur Sanders, is he the perfect quarterback? No. One thing that I'd love to see him do more, and we talked about this, I think off the air more, when Travis Hunter's running down the sidelines, let that ball rip. Let your guy go make a play on the ball. He's got some good playmakers, holds on to the ball a little bit too long at times, but still inaccurate quarterback, pretty mobile in the pocket. I do think Colorado would have benefited, and Shedeur Sanders would have benefited more from a stronger running game. They're not a great running team. They got some good wideouts there. Another wideout participating in the combine yesterday. But Shedeur Sanders is my 104. Nate, let's kick it over to the 105. What are we doing here?
All right. Well, I'm going back to wide receiver. I haven't picked one yet, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up my wide receiver one in this class. Maybe a little controversial because it seems like the draft media is starting to really poo-poo on Luther Burden, I guess, where I'm seeing him fall down rankings, to, wide receiver 3, 4, 5. He's at number 32 in a mock draft we saw just the other day going to the Eagles, which doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't see it happening.
So, but I think Luther Burden's still a top 15, top 20 pick. I think the ability that he offers and the potential upside that he offers, because of his athleticism, because he's a good wide receiver too. He's not one of these athletes who still needs to learn how to play wide receiver. I think he's done enough throughout his college career to show us that he can be a wide receiver. He still certainly has some development to make, but just about every single one of these guys in this class still do need to develop to be that pro wide receiver. So I think what Burden offers, though, with the upside of his athletic ability, with the yards after the catch, his physicality at the catch point and after the catch, this is a guy that I think can score a lot of fantasy points, a guy that offers a ton of upside. And at the 105, I think that's pretty good value. I could go running back, but I think the depth of the running back position allows me to wait a little bit on that position. So picking up the wide receiver here and not looking back.
I will say this. A lot of people are going to say, and it's important when you look at players, you have to look at the scheme that they're involved in. I think especially a guy like Luther Burden. We were talking about Trey Harris before as well, and the way he was used at Ole Miss. But Luther Burden, he's going to be pegged as a slot-only guy. In his freshman season, 85% of his snaps came out wide. So it's not that he can't. It's just not how Missouri chose to utilize him, which, hey, Missouri's going to do what they do out there. So I love the pick at the 105. The 106, I am taking a running back. I'm taking a guy who I think if Ashton Genty wasn't in this class, could be a lot of people's running back one. And there's going to be obviously other discussions there, and that's fine. But I'm going with Omarion Hampton. Watching him at the combine yesterday, this dude is built. I love his film. He does not shy away from contact. He will run you over, but he can also make you miss. So I'm a big fan of Omarion Hampton. I think at the 106, this is a guy here that, can definitely pay dividends right away for your fantasy team, obviously depending on his landing spot. And I do want to say here as well, we've heard people talking, ourselves included, the quarterback class, the wide receiver class isn't good. Through the 106, we're even. 2 each, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks. So maybe not as bad, maybe just a little top heavy for wide receiver and quarterback, but we'll obviously get through that. So Nate, let's kick it over to the 107. And I think this is your running back too, isn't it?
Yeah, you got your running back too. I get my running back too now. I'm going to go ahead and pick up Travion Henderson. He had a pretty good combine himself, ran a 4.43, had a 38.5-inch vertical jump. So he really showed off his athleticism. Coming in at 5'10", 202. This guy's compact, he's powerful, he's fast, he's a great receiving back as well. And I think he can really excel running not just outside the tackles, but also inside the tackles. He didn't run the ball as much this year because he had his backfield mate, Quinshon Judkins there, who is quite the running back himself. Yeah. But I think Travion Henderson, the upside, once again, going back to like Luther Burden conversation, the upside that Travion Henderson offers at the position puts him above Quinshon Judkins for me, who Judkins looked great in the combine, to be honest. There was some talk about him not having the speed, at the end of the season and things like that. He looked great in the combine, and we'll get to Judkins in a little bit. But Travion Henderson, my RB2, the physicality, the athleticism, and the receiving ability, those 3 things in the elite upside that he offers, and those, I love him as my RB2. I love picking him up at the 107. I think it's a great value because this is a guy, we were talking about it last night, some of these running backs, my RB2, your RB2, how do they compare against past RB2s like Jahmyr Gibbs? We were talking about last night. I think I have Jahmyr Gibbs over Travion Henderson, but it's close. Yeah. I think Travion Henderson makes the conversation. He's that good of a prospect.
He really is. I really want to see Henderson go to like a San Francisco. CMC's been banged up, but looking at CMC's contract, it wouldn't make sense for them to draft a guy like Henderson in, say, the 2nd round. But I think the Rams would be a really good spot for a guy like Travion Henderson. I mean, you got Kyron Williams there, and he's good. He's a physical runner. Had some fumbling issues this past year. And then after him, you do have some Blake Corum's there. You have some question marks if you're the Rams. So I think Travion Henderson would fill a lot of those holes that team has. So love the pick there. And for me at the 108, it is a tight end premium. So I'm going to take the first tight end off the board, not because I'm a Penn State fan, but because to me, Tyler Warren is the best tight end in this class. Versatility, Nate. He can run. He can pass. He can catch. He can do whatever you need him to. He can
snap the ball, man.
He can snap the ball and then also catch a ball on that same play against USC. Watch Tyler Warren's film against USC. It is absolutely incredible what he's done. So Tyler Warren for me at the 108, I think it's a no-brainer in a tight end premium. And I think there's some possibilities in tight end premium leagues if you have a higher tight end premium than 1 point, we've seen 1.5, 2 points tight end premium. He could probably go higher than the 108, admittedly.
The best thing for Tyler Warren was the fact that Brock Bowers was drafted last year, and everyone's expectations are probably going to be too high. I think the 108, not a bad place with the kind of tight end premium that we have right now. I do think that this is a little high because I think there's also a couple other tight ends in this class that I like, but Tyler Warren has been incredible this past year. So I don't hate it. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how quickly he translates to scoring fantasy points because we were so spoiled this year with Brock Bowers.
Yeah, for sure. We were. And I'm not saying that he's the next Brock Bowers, but he's probably the closest thing this class has to Brock Bowers as far as the versatility and how dynamic of a playmaker he is. So other good tight ends here. We got some more coming up. But until then, let's head over to the 109.
Yeah, at the 109, I'm going to the place where you can always pick up a good wide receiver, and that's Ohio State. So I'm going to pick up Emeka Egbuka because this guy is pro-ready. He doesn't have a lot of question marks. We have Burden, we have McMillan ahead of him. We think that they offer a bit more upside, but they also have more question marks than Egbuka. I don't really have any question marks with Egbuka. I really feel like I know who he is as a player, how he's going to translate to the NFL. A lot of people are going to try to put him in the slot, which I think he will play the majority of his snaps out of at the next level, but he offers the versatility to play more than just the slot. He's a guy that has been really consistent over his time at Ohio State. Would have come out last year, except for it was for the injuries. Wanted to come back for the national championship, which worked out. They did win the national championship this year, so that worked out. But he had 81 catches for 1,000 yards this year and 10 touchdowns. So a pro's pro. He coming from that long line of Ohio State wide receivers, Brian Hartline, of course, being the wide receivers coach over there. So this is a guy that I feel really confident can step in, have a role in a team. I expect him to be like a late first-round pick. Probably like in the early 20s where we see that really nice sweet spot where we've seen guys like Justin Jefferson being picked before Rashad Bateman. Those guys go into those teams that can really put them right into their offense and a good offense as well and see them succeed.
Yeah, and I think with Egbuka, you get a nice safe floor as well. The other guys that were picked above him, I think the ceiling is higher, but the floor for Egbuka is just so steady. And I think was it him we saw mocked to the Texans?
The Texans,
yeah, which I think would be a great spot for him. They need some help
Agreed.
down there. Tank Dell going to be rehabilitating. You got Nico Collins, and then there's some question marks.
Devon Diggs a free agent, so.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to come back.
I don't think so.
I doubt it. All right, so let's move it over to the 110. I'm planting my flag here, Nate. I'm going with Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. You want to talk about a blazing 40. It was a 4.3, wasn't it?
4.29.
4.29, even better than a 4.3. I mean, 4.29, this guy's got speed. His ability to his concentration and his sideline situational awareness is otherworldly. I wish he wouldn't have been at Houston for so long. I think he was there for 2 years, played 1 year at Texas. I mean, Matthew Golden, the hands, the speed, the separation, the route running, fantastic. There's a possibility too that 110 would be a steal for Matthew Golden, depending on his landing spot.
It would be. Interested
to see where he goes. You ready for the 111?
Well, with Matthew Golden, I think he's played himself into being a first-round pick at this point.
It's a good possibility.
With the combine that he just had, the tape that he's put on, we kind of had him pegged as a late first, early second anyway. But I think with this combine, he's really solidified himself into the first round, which when we're talking about first-round wide receivers, I'm looking at Burden, McMillan, Egbuka, and Golden at the moment. Maybe someone else sneaks in there near the end of the first round. But I think those four guys, we're going to see them all in the first round of our NFL draft. We're going to see them all in the first round of our rookie drafts as well. So we need to make sure we're paying attention and not letting them slip too far.
Draft capital matters.
It does.
It does.
All right.
Got at the 111.
111. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my last running back's backfield mate, Quinshon Judkins, another running back that I cannot pass up on at the 111. It's incredible that in this mock draft, we are being able to pick up such good running backs at the end of the first. And looking ahead, we could pick up some pretty good running backs in the second round as well. This class is so deep. We've talked about how excited we've been for this class for a while. We were actually really excited about last year's class, Mike, and then all the players decided to go back to college, just making this class that much better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. As they said on the combine, this was the fastest class that they've recorded at the running back position and the wide receiver position. Both classes, the fastest that they've ever seen from an average standpoint. So many 4.3s, so many 4.4s. They're making 4.3s look average. There's so much athleticism in this class, and Quinshon Judkins showed off his athleticism this combine as well. Like I said earlier, some people were doubting his long speed. I don't think his long speed's still elite or anything, but his athleticism is plenty enough. He is a great athlete. He had a great vertical as well at the combine this past weekend. So Judkins, great vision, great athleticism, a good pass catcher as well. He's a guy that can go in, grind out games, get a lot of touches. Maybe he's not quite as explosive as a guy like Travion Henderson, but he can take more touches and still give you just as many fantasy points.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Maybe a safer floor than Travion Henderson. The ceiling's capped a little bit. Not as good of a receiver as Henderson, which I think, as you see, he's 4 picks behind Henderson.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that. But another guy who might have a clearer path to more touches in the NFL, too, just with his physicality overall. So let's finish out the first round. I'm doing another flag plan here, Nate. I'm going with Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. This is another combine riser and another guy that has been slowly moving up everyone's draft boards. This could end up being maybe this year's Bo Nix.
All right.
There's a possibility. You know, if he gets a first round draft capital in this year's draft, which a lot of people were talking about yesterday, and it is very, very possible there's going to be teams interested. I know that the concern was the usage of the middle of the field. We've talked about this before. For me with Jackson Dart, go back, watch his film at USC. It's just Ole Miss's system. They don't utilize that part of the field a ton. It's a lot of downfield stuff, a lot of stuff close to the line of scrimmage. I do have some decision-making concerns with Jackson Dart, but these are things that I feel would benefit him sitting a year, watching a veteran quarterback play. And if it's a team that they're out of playoff contention and he starts 2, 3, 4 games at the end of the year, it's going to help him for next year. So Jackson Dart at the 112 for me. Let's kick it over. Let's start off the second round. Who are you taking with the 201?
All right. You know, you're talking about your flag plant with Jackson Dart, with Matthew Golden. This is my guy. This is one of the players I'm most excited about, and I feel like is one of the best values so far. It's Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. I heard that some people were disappointed. He ran a 4.6, I believe. I'll have to get the exact number here for his 40-yard dash. But people were upset that maybe he didn't 4.58. Okay. You know, maybe not the 4.4 that we're used to with this super fast class.
Yeah.
But a 4.58 with his agility. He actually did quite well in the 3-cone drill, I believe. A good 10-yard split with 1.59, but he doesn't have the long speed. That's what we saw with his 40-yard dash. The 1.59 10-yard split, that is good. That equates to a lot of other running backs as well. So it's with a long speed with Devin Neal that he doesn't have. But with the running back position in the NFL, there's not a lot of times where you are 30, 40 yards down the field and having to finish off a play. Yeah. That's going to come. You know, you'll take that. You'll take it. You won't. You know, either way. Devin Neal's going to put himself in that position though more often than other guys because of his vision, his stop-start ability. What I just love watching Devin Neal's film because he's one of the best at efficient movement. I'm a guy who gives you that little shoulder shake and makes someone miss. He doesn't have to do the full ham and take a full step over there, full step over here, another full step over there just to make someone miss. He's very efficient with his movement, great vision, great patience. Has been a starter in college for 4 years now. One of the best running backs ever to come from Kansas, and that's a team that put out Puka Williams a couple of years ago, as you know. So Devin Neal, one of my favorite players. I think a steal the second round. You might be able to pick him up later than this, especially after his combine. I think I'm taking him probably a little early, but I need to make sure that he's on my team because I think Devin Neal is really going to be one of the steals of the draft.
Career 4,300 rushing yards, 49 touchdowns. And look, he also racked up 711 receiving yards. And this is not a team that threw to the running backs super often. So he's a dynamic playmaker. Is the long speed there? No. He's very athletic. I like this pick to start out the second round. I'm definitely okay with that. Let's go with another running back here. And at the 202, look, we saw the comments on our top 5 running back video. A lot of people thought that we should have Iowa's Caleb Johnson a little bit higher. More of a straight line runner, not the best lateral agility, kind of an upright running style. However, he is still a very physical runner. And I do think his receiving chops are a bit underutilized. Now, if you go back and watch some film, he was better 2 years ago when, believe it or not, Spencer Petras was their quarterback. Cade McNamara came in. A lot of balls thrown behind Caleb Johnson, just not super accurate. I like Caleb Johnson, and that could be a good value here as well at the 202. So we're seeing already the second round is going to be a really good spot for running backs. These may not be guys that have the clearest path to 3-down work in the NFL, but look, sometimes you draft these guys. It takes a little bit of time for them to get on the field to get more of an established role. So be patient with some of these second-round running backs. But Caleb Johnson probably will start out as a backup in the NFL to somebody. I think he can steal some snaps, though. He's that good.
All right, the 203, we are in a 1-point tight end premium league. This guy probably deserves to come off the board already. He's going to be a first-round pick. in the NFL draft. That's Colston Loveland. I've seen him mocked to the Broncos quite a bit to be that joker for Sean Payton. I would love that. That's probably my favorite spot for him outside of maybe going to the Chargers, reuniting with Jim Harbaugh, Michigan man. But Colston Loveland, as good as Tyler Warren is, I do think Colston Loveland is the best receiving tight end, pure receiver at the tight end position in this class. I know that there's some, bigger NFL draft media analysts that agree with me there. I think Ben Solak agrees with me there. I think either Lance Zierlein or Daniel Jeremiah, one of them as well. I think Loveland's just such a good receiver. He's so versatile in the receiving game, can run so many different routes. He's a very smooth mover throughout his routes and great catching ability. Very comfortable outside of his frame as well. So I'm a big fan of Colston Loveland and how that can translate to fantasy football for us. I think he's a guy that can step in and be a receiver for a team pretty quickly. And if he goes to a team like the Broncos, his biggest competition for targets is Courtland Sutton. They play very different positions, of course. So I think, going somewhere like that, he would be a shoo-in for 70, 80 targets, at least his rookie year. Could give you a really good performance from the get-go. So Colston Loveland, I think a guy that you're going to be able to pick up sometimes in the late first and tight end premium, but more likely sometime in the early second. And I think he's going to be a great value at that spot.
Also, one thing about Colston Loveland, the stats lie about this guy. Didn't put up a ton of yards at Michigan. It's just not how Michigan really utilize their tight ends. Not everyone's going to put up Tyler Warren or Harold Fannin type stats.
Yeah.
So
also, he looked better. He looked better last year than this year. JJ McCarthy, obviously a better quarterback than what they were working with this year.
Of course.
This year, 582 yards, 5 touchdowns. Last year, 649 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. So not a very good runner of the ball, though. 2 carries for negative 10 yards in his career.
Darn.
It's okay. Let's let's stick with the tight end position at the 203. I'm sorry, the 204. I'm going to go with Mason Taylor out of LSU. This dude just looks to me, I can't really quantify it. He looks like an NFL tight end. The size, the speed, the route running, the way he catches the ball, and he has no problem asserting his dominance after he catches the ball either. I love Mason Taylor. I want to watch more on him. I've watched a bunch already. I want to find as much as I can. Good blocker too, decent. I would say not the best, but obviously these guys, they're not all going to be fantastic blockers coming out of college. We don't expect that from a collegiate tight end. But Mason Taylor, the 204, I feel like the 203 and the 204 here with these 2 tight ends, these could be really, really good. I don't want to say steals, but these potential stash to start the season. These guys are going to be contributors for your team relatively soon, I would say, at this point in the draft. And then at the 205, I know, some people are watching the first round. They're going to have question marks. Why wasn't this guy taken yet? So, Nate, why don't you tell us why you took him, why he hasn't been taken yet because of the questions that we have?
Yeah, you're probably asking where's Travis Hunter. And he admittedly very much deserves to come off the board before this spot if we know he's going to be playing wide receiver at the next level and how much he's going to be playing wide receiver at the next level. We don't know. We don't know at the moment. And whether we put him in the first round, we put him at the 104, 105, we could do that, and that might be where he ends up. But then it's, okay, well, what if he's not playing a full game of snaps at wide receiver? Well, then he's probably not a great pick at that spot. We could put him here, or I pick him up at the 205, and you can get the same complaints. Well, if he plays more wide receiver, he deserves to go much higher than this. So it's really hard to put Travis Hunter right now in a mock draft without knowing where he's going and how they're going to divvy up snaps. Is he going to be playing cornerback and a little bit of wide receiver? Is he going to be playing wide receiver, a little bit of cornerback, fully playing both? I have no clue right now. And until I have some feedback from NFL media of what they expect from Travis Hunter at the next level, it's really hard to put it where he's going to be at the mock draft. But I think he's going to end up higher than 205. But, we kind of got this far and we're like, well, we haven't actually put Travis Hunter in here yet.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I selected him here. If he plays wide receiver at a full-time rate, or even, if he's getting at least like 20 snaps a game at wide receiver, that's enough for me to put him in the first round, certainly. If Travis Hunter was just a wide receiver in this class, good possibility he's my wide receiver 1. If he's just a wide receiver, he probably is my wide receiver 1 in this class. His athleticism, his just feel and IQ,
speed,
it's just, he is an incredible player. There's a reason that he could play both wide receiver and cornerback. We don't ever see that happen. It takes a really rare player to be able to do that, not just athletically, but also just to have the stamina to do that throughout an entire season is actually incredible. He won the Blitnikoff. That's a little controversial, but he is a really, really good wide receiver, was top 5 in the NCAA in all the different categories that you expect a wide receiver to be in. So at the 205, he's absolutely a steal. That's for sure. We admit that, but we don't know where to put him. So this is where we're putting him for the moment. As we get closer to the draft, as we get post-draft, we will have a much better value on Travis Hunter. But the upside is immense with him if he's actually playing wide receiver full-time, or even mostly like 50% or more is going to be an incredible wide receiver, I think, in the next level.
2 things about Travis Hunter. If this is an IDP league,
Oh,
clearly a first-round
top
pick.
3 pick probably.
Because
not number 1.
You just put him in your lineup, you're good to go. He's going to get you a lot of points. Now, I did read a report last night as I was laying in bed, and I should have been sleeping. I did see, he was put into the combine as a cornerback, and he texted his agent about it. That apparently was not his choice. That was what the NFL decided to do with him.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the reason he didn't participate in any drills.
And a little bit of why we're putting him here in the second rather than the first, because it seems like the NFL is leaning towards having him as a cornerback with some wide receiver snaps.
Right.
Versus the other way around.
So, there's one of those things where could he be a really good producer for you as a wide receiver? Yes. But the likelihood is we don't know. So I hate to say it's a wait and see, but until we know more, it's really hard to peg down what's going to happen.
This is unprecedented territory. I've never had to worry about a player like this as we get into. I mean, we're after the combine at this point. I still don't know what position he's playing. So.
Exactly. It's tough. But I'll tell you what, I have a guy at 206 who I know is only going to take wide receiver snaps. And if you're watching or listening, you know that I'm a big fan of Trey Harris from Ole Miss. We talked before about Ole Miss's system. I think he was not utilized correctly. And I'm not saying he's these players, but if you look at what Ole Miss has put out, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, they go deep. They go run out routes. They do crossers across the middle of the field. Trey Harris can do all of those things. Why are you using him so close to the line of scrimmage on these little bubble screens, these little short routes? That's not his game. More straight line speed than anything else. Big frame, physical, strong hands at the 206. I like Trey Harris here. I'm okay with it. Also okay with the Travis Hunter pick. 207. We were talking about this guy a little bit this weekend, Nate.
We were. I'm a big fan of Jaden Higgins. I actually had him as my wide receiver 5 in our preliminary wide receiver rankings. I don't know if that's going to stand up as we get deeper into this class. There are some good wide receivers as we get into this class. But Jaden Higgins, I love the fact that he is such a smooth, fluid athlete at 6'4", 215 pounds. He ran a 4.47 and just looked really smooth as a runner as well. And you watch the tape, you see him, he's a smooth route runner, which you don't see for a lot of guys who are that size. So with that kind of fluidity, plus his contested catch ability, the concentration, the ball tracking ability, he's a really good catcher of the ball, as I would say. It's what a wide receiver is supposed to do. He does it well. He's big. He's athletic. Checks a lot of boxes for me. Doesn't offer a lot after the catch, but that's not what you're looking for in this kind of player who's going to be your wide receiver, but more of a chain mover, possession wide receiver. But, they were comparing him on NFL Network to Nico Collins. I don't love that comp because of the yak. Nico Collins is really, really good after the catch. In fact, was putting up crazy numbers over the past years in that category. But Jaden Higgins, I think, can play at a pretty high level at the NFL. I don't think he's going to be quite Nico Collins, but I am excited about Jaden Higgins. I think he's a good pickup here in the middle of the second round. And Mike, I don't think we're going to have him in this mock draft, but Jaden Higgins' teammate is also someone that we will have to consider maybe sneaking into the second round. Because
I actually just made a change on my sheet. After the scouting we did this morning, we'll get there in a little bit.
Sign up at the Patreon.
Yeah, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind, please. So the 208, I went back to the quarterback and I like Quinn Ewers from Texas. That's who I have here. I do think he should have went back for another year. He does have some injury concerns. He gets banged up a considerable amount. Kind of a strange release of the football. There are times when Quinn Ewers is on, he is absolutely electric, but it looks like he can get rattled back there in the pocket. Doesn't always lead his receiver as well. And we've talked about this in the past. It hasn't gotten much better. He throws a lot of hospital balls. He leaves guys hanging in the middle of the field. That has got to be cleaned up. I'm really interested to see, and this could obviously change how this mock looks. I want to see where Quinn Ewers gets drafted in the NFL draft. What's he going to look like? Where's he going to go? Is he sitting behind someone? Are they going to make him start right away? There's a lot of teams that need quarterback help, and there's always this time of year where you see a veteran quarterback get released that you didn't see coming. So we don't know what that's going to look like there. Quinn Ewers at the 208 could be higher, could be lower, depending on his draft capital too. Nate, let's kick it over to the 209.
All right, the 209. I'm picking up a player that we both are big fans of.
Yes.
That we know is going to translate pretty well to the NFL. That's Xavier Restrepo, wide receiver out of Miami. Going to be a slot player at the next level, most likely. But he is 5'8" and 7/10, weighs 206 pounds. And since I think 2003 is when a lot of these combine measurements, then they're giving records for. 2003 is when the combine really kind of became a huge event. NFL Network was there and things like that after that. Since 2003, there's been no player to come in under 5'10" and over 205 pounds, except for Xavier Restrepo this year. So, we were watching some film. We were watching him run his drills. He did not run the 40-yard dash, but running around the drills, this guy looks like a running back out there in the way that he's built. He's an incredible route runner. He's really good hands. And the fact that he's built like that and offers that physicality after the catch, and not just after the catch, actually, but also at the catch point. Xavier Restrepo is very physical. He plays with that edge to him, as Mike loves to hear. He's got that dog in him. So Xavier Restrepo is someone I'm really excited about, and I think has a talent level above where we're going to be picking him up here at the 209. But because he's going to go to the slot, that kind of just has a reputation about it, even though in fantasy football, if you're getting peppered with targets out of the slot, you're probably going to do pretty well because most of us play in a PPR league by this point.
I would assume so.
So Xavier Restrepo, I think is, I'm saying there's a bunch of steals here in the second round. That's how we kind of always feel around this time of the year. But I do really feel like this class is very solid through the top 24. And picking up Xavier Restrepo here, I feel like I'm getting a really good flex play wide receiver here in the second round that I'm going to be able to rely on for a while.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a comp for Restrepo, just the way he plays. Julian Edelman.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty common comp, and Edelman was a pretty physical player as well.
Yeah, smaller guy, but physical, stocky build.
Yeah,
tough guy. Restrepo, he is just built. You see him out there. I know it's just the Underwear Olympics, but he looks more like a running back. And we did hear that he was a defensive player at one point in time too. So we know that the physicality is going to be there with Xavier. The 210, you want to talk about physicality. I don't know what his floor or ceiling is going to be. Likely going to be a backup. I don't want to say career backup. Might have a Peyton Hillis ascension where he gets to start for a couple years. That's Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State. Not the fastest, not the most dynamic runner. Lateral agility is decent, but not over the top. However, where he thrives is physicality. He has no problem lowering his shoulder and letting you know, hey, I'm here and you're about to not be here.
Another guy who plays with that dog in him.
We're about to ban that term from this channel. I thought it already was, but that being said, Cam Scatterbo put up some monster yards, and he's another guy that started at, I think, JUCO or a community college, something like that, came up to Arizona State. Cam Scatterbo, super physical, and if he's the backup to a guy, I think he should go somewhere and be a backup to a very physical runner, like a Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, a guy where if the starter goes out for a little bit, you're not losing much in terms of physical skill play. But I do think he's likely a high-end handcuff at the next level. For right now, obviously, things could change. Nate, would you like to give us your last pick of the draft?
Yeah, my last pick of the draft here at the 211. I'm gambling on some upside. This is a super flex mock. Jalen Milroe is still on the board. I'm going to go after Jalen Milroe, who we watched do the drills last night. We were watching some Isaiah Bond film this morning. So we went back and watched the 2023 Alabama film as well. And man, Jalen Milroe, one of the strongest arms that we've seen recently.
Cannon.
But also constantly overthrows his players. Doesn't have any touch on a lot of his passes, but an absolute cannon as well. And the athletic ability, his ability to make things happen on the ground, get touchdowns, grit first downs. He is a threat every single play to create a big play. And the NFL loves those kind of guys. We love those kind of guys, guys that are game changers, playmakers, those buzzwords. Jalen Milroe certainly is that. But at this point, he's not an NFL quarterback. And he's going to have to sit for a year, maybe 2 years, I think. But he's got all the tools that you look for. And I think if he goes as a day 2 draft pick, goes somewhere and sits for a year or two, I think he's got the potential to be an NFL starter at some point. If he goes in the first round, has the pressure to start within the first year, I don't think that's going to work out very well. But I don't think we're at that point. I think the NFL GMs are honest about his evaluation and know that he's not quite there as a quarterback yet. Whether it's the stats that you're looking at or the film, he needs some more development. And at the end of the second round, there are some guys I'm excited to pick up if we were doing a third round here. But I do want to look at Jalen Milroe here because I think at this point, the value of the upside that he brings, picking him up in the late second, I think that's worth a gamble at that point. And this is also a guy, if you miss out on in the second round, like I said, I don't expect him to start anytime soon. So you can probably go get him later after he's been sitting for a while for a similar price. So if you miss out on him, you haven't actually missed out on Jalen Milroe yet. I think he's going to have to sit for a year or two. So
I agree. If he learns how to get some better touch on his passes, look out NFL, because Milroe has all the arm talent in the world. Let's close this draft out. We talked about him before a little bit. That's Jalen Knoll, wide receiver from Iowa State. We watched some film on him this morning.
Learned how to say his last name.
Yes, we did. Thank you, YouTube commenters. But man, I'll tell you what, the release off the line, the route running, the overall speed, and this is another guy who's not really big, but the physicality that this guy plays with, wow. I think he's a day 2 pick. I don't know exactly where in day 2 he's going to be. I think maybe he could end up being a late 2nd round, early 3rd round pick, possibly. But I'll tell you, Iowa State, they had a really good trio out there. Their quarterback, their 2 wide receivers, that was pretty electric. But Jalen Knoll really, really impressed me with what he put on film there. And I would love to have him on my NFL team or my fantasy team. Either way, the speed, the physicality, that's what does it for me.
Yeah, someone who absolutely destroyed the combine this year. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash with a 1.51 10-yard split, 41.5-inch vertical jump, over 11-foot broad jump. I mean, and at 23 bench reps too. So, he's not just a fast guy. He's all around athletic. We watching the film. He's thick as well. He's pretty stocky. He's came in at 5'10", 194. He looks like he probably played at about 200 pounds or something this year. So Jalen Knoll, someone that we really hadn't had our eyes on too much before this. And we did mention him, I believe, as an honorable mention in our wide receiver video. But we've really been able to dive into the film now. And with the combine, someone that we're both pretty excited about.
Yeah, it has him here. Sports Reference has him listed at 5'10", 185. He looks a little thicker than 185.
Yeah, I think that's because I think PFF had him at 200 pounds. So
yeah.
I think that might have been like maybe from his freshman or sophomore.
Also, does not shy away from contact either.
No,
he has
physical.
No problem fighting for extra, and he fights for everything that he can get. Thank you for watching, everybody. Make sure you hit subscribe. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. You want some cool merch like Nate is rocking over there? The link is down below. You got to make sure you look your best on rookie draft day, right? So order now so you can make sure that it's there in time. But until next time, everybody, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thanks for watching.